Hey guys, Balkan Architect here. So a few days ago, a bit earlier this week, I did a tutorial where I basically gave you an overview over all of the tools and features that come in Revit that refer to structure. Now that was part one, and we covered on the structural tab, we covered the structure panel as well as the connection panel. And in this tutorial, part two, we're going to be covering the foundation panel as well as reinforcement panel, or Rebar. So this is like an overview of all of the structure tools in Revit, just to get you interesting and just to go over all of the basic tools and features that Revit offers for structure. And then if you want some more in-depth tutorials on how to use each of these tools, I will be leaving some links in the description of this video. And also if you want some of the more advanced courses that are all over 1 hour long, I suggest you check out my Patreon. That's the first link in the description, and there you can find a lot more courses. I have like 35 hours of content there, and these are more in-depth courses where I can take my time and explain in depth all of these Revit advanced topics. Okay, so that's for that Patreon. And just quickly before we get into the video, I would just like to ask you to like this tutorial. It helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm, and if you haven't already, I suggest you subscribe because I make useful Revit tutorials each week. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get into part two. For foundation, we have three options here, the three basic options. So let's start off with isolated, and these structural foundations that are isolated, usually they're placed underneath columns. So you just go here to isolated. Here we have a couple of types loaded in, so let's go with this one. And then here currently it's set to level 1, so you can try to find here the edge of this column, or what I suggest is you go into level 1 and then go here to isolated, and then make sure to find the center or the midpoint of your column and then just place. Same thing on the other side, so just place it in the center, and there we go. So if we go into 3D, there we go, we have our isolated foundation. Now, if you want to do wall foundation, you have that option. Now, here we have the bearing footing and the retaining footing. So if you have a retaining wall, you would use this one, and if you have a bearing wall, you would use this one, and it basically works the same, it's even easier because you just need to select a wall, or you can hit the tab key and then select a whole chain of walls, and then you just click, and there we go, we have foundation underneath. Now sometimes you would want to use a foundation slab instead of these just kind of tracks. So what you can do is, let's delete this for now, just like that. Let's go into level 1 and let's do a slab. Now if I open up the drop menu, here we have either a slab or a slab edge. I'm going to be doing the slab edge afterwards, but first let's go with a structural foundation slab. You select that, you do a simple rectangular selection around these walls, and there we go, or a simple rectangular sketch. And here we have the span direction, the slope arrow, if you want to set that up, but let's leave it as is. Maybe turn the span direction in the different direction, so you can use the pick lines and then pick this line, and there we go. So now the span direction is going this way. You hit finish, and there we go. Now if we go into 3D, this is what that slab will look like. And here, if I turn on thin lines, you're going to notice that it appears with these green lines. So this is basically representing the analytical model for this foundation, or for this foundation slab. And also it has some of those basic settings. Here we have the dimensions, things like that. And the same thing goes with this isolated foundation. Here we have a few more options, as you can see. Now for this isolated foundation, this is how it gets represented analytically. Now you can turn that off if you want, but I prefer to leave it on. There we go. Okay, and one more option that we have for slabs is the floor slab edge. So let's select that. You select the lower line of this floor slab, and then you can go all the way around. Okay, I accidentally unchecked there. There we go. Even here, and there we go, that's what it looks like. And now we have that slab edge. Maybe if I turn this on to realistic, this would look even better. So there we go, this is what that looks like. So we have that slab edge. Okay, let's go back to maybe hidden line, or let's go into a wireframe. Okay, now it's time to explore the reinforcement panel or the rebar panel. Okay, so we have a few more options now. I'm going to be jumping from one tool to the other just because they're designed to work in conjunction with each other. So you can't use the one without the other. So first, let's set up some elements that we can add rebar to. So to get started with the basic rebar tool, what I'm going to do is just place a simple column. So let's go here to column and let's do a vertical column and let's place it to height. And let's go, okay, here I'm currently at level 2, so let's go down to level 1. Yeah, and let's place the column here. So I'm just going to set the height and let's set it to level 2, and let's go here for the column. Let's go with one of these, the concrete rectangular ones, and I'm just going to place the column here. Now, before you can get started with the regular rebar tool, you need to first set up the cover. Now the cover can be set up through the edit cover tool by selecting it, and now as you can see you get this dashed green line that sets up your rebar cover, and here you can set up the options for that. Now you go here to rebar cover, you select the column, and here you can choose one of the options, or you can go here in the menu and maybe add some more options that maybe correspond to the rules and regulations in your country. Now I'm just going to cancel out of that and show you a different way that you can set up the rebar cover, and that's by selecting your element, and most structural elements will have this option. So you just scroll down over here underneath structural, and here we have the rebar cover options. So maybe expand this menu even further. So this is the top face, the bottom face, and other faces, which are, I guess, sides. And here you can set up one of these covers. So these are the same options as we had here when we went into rebar cover, selected the column, and those are these same options. So again, if you want to add something to those options, you have to go here to the this 3 dots, edit cover settings, and then here you can change the rebar cover settings. But for now, let's say I'm happy with this rebar cover. Let's say it's decent enough, and then let's go and add rebar. Now here, let's just click OK, and there we go. Now if you were using some different template, perhaps you might not have these rebar shapes, so you would have to load them in. Luckily, within the structural template, we have these loaded in. So what I'm going to do first is expand this, make sure that this says parallel to projection for now, and let's go here and choose the far cover reference. So that's basically, in this case, that would be bottom of this column. So choose that, and now as you can see, if I try to place this, it will look like that. But I don't want to place this shape, I want to place the shape that's kind of going to hold all of the rebar in place. So let's scroll all the way down, and here we go. Let's go with this one, and as you can see now it works correctly. Now if you go around, it's going to spin around, and let's place it here. There we go. So we have our rebar shape. Now in this case it looks like this just because it looks like this in 2D, but let's go into 3D to explore it even further. And if we go into 3D, you're going to notice that it's just here on the bottom. Now if I select it, I can go here to layout and change the layout from single to maybe maximum spacing, and let's add maximum spacing of 300 millimeters. And now as you can see, we have a lot of these, so they're basically at each at 300 millimeters or a bit less. Now you can go back into level 1, let's add a bit more rebar. So let's go here to rebar, and let's go back to that first shape, so just do a line. Now this one, I don't want it to be parallel to the work plane, I want it to be parallel to the cover, so let's go with that. And now as you can see, I can place it like this as a dot. Now here we can set it up to be a single, or maybe fix the number, and let's go with number 3. So as you can see, now we can place it like this, 3, just like you can add 3 of these. So let's add 3 here and 3 on the other side. There we go. So now we have our rebar. Now you can select these. Okay, you can hit the tab key to make sure that you select rebar, and then you can maybe make it a bit thicker. So let's go with 16. Oops, there we go. 16 for these ones on the edge, and then you can go into 3D, and this is what that would look like. Now let's set this to fine level of detail, but as you can see, it still looks just like simple lines. If I turn on thin lines, it's going to look like this. So if you want it to be a bit more realistic, you can select all of these. So I'm just selecting all of the rebar, go to the properties panel, and underneath graphics we have view visibility states, and here if we just check view as solid in the 3D analytical model and the 3D view, click OK. There we go, so they now appear as solid. So this looks really cool. So there you go. This is how you set your regular rebar. Now let's move on to area rebar, and you can add this to either floors or maybe walls. Any area element, you can add area rebar. So let's go back into level 1, and next to this column maybe we can place some sort of a floor. Let's just go with the generic 300mm floor, just like this. Hit finish. There we go, we have our floor. And here we can add area. So you just go here to area, you select your floor, and then you can just go with a simple rectangle, maybe give it a bit of an offset of like 100mm. Hit the space key to spin it to the other side, and there we go. If I hit finish, it says here we have some rebar, but if I go into 3D, it's going to be a bit more visible. So as you can see, area adds rebar both on top and bottom, and you can actually play around with these settings over here in the properties panel. So this is the major bar type, the one on top, then we have the one on bottom, we have the hook type, so you can add some hooks if that's what you want. So there we go, we have some hooks, so you can play around with these settings, and you can actually set up this pretty decently. Also, we can change the visibility settings to view this as solid, so it looks a bit cooler and it's represented correctly. So feel free to explore these tools or these settings and set it up in the way that you want to set it up correctly. Okay, let's go back into level 1 to explore the other tools. So let's go back into our floor. Let's do another one here, just like that. There we go. And now let's see the path reinforcement tool. So this allows you to add rebar on the edge. So if I just go here to path, I can just select this element, and then I can go along this edge and just add rebar. Now if it's on the wrong side, you can use these flip grips to flip it to the right side, hit finish, and there we go. Go into 3D, of course select this, and as I like to do with all of my rebar elements, go to view visibility states and turn on 3D. Click OK. There we go. Now, of course, you can play around with the distances between these, the primary rebar type, make it a bit thicker, and then play around with the hook, maybe 180. So you have multiple settings that you can play around here, so feel free to explore that, and you can kind of stretch it around here if that's what you want. Let's bring it back. So there we go. That's how this path rebar tool works. Now we have the option for fabric area and the fabric sheet. Now you're going to notice that the fabric sheet doesn't come on. So basically fabric area is just like area, but it's only going to give you one of these. So here, as you can see, we have a couple of sheets on top. Maybe if I go like this, yeah. Let's go to the right side. So here we go. So we have 2 sheets on top and 2 sheets on bottom. So if you go, that's the area. The fabric area is just going to give you 2 sheets either on top or on bottom. And then the fabric sheet is just going to give you 1 sheet either on top or bottom. So that's basically the difference between area, fabric area, and fabric sheet. Now let's go back into level 1 perhaps. Now here, when you go into level 1, you're going to notice that you have the fabric sheet option. Now, so let's go first with the fabric area. Let's do a simple floor here. Again, just a floor like this. Hit finish. Then you can go here into fabric area, and you select the element where you want to place it, and then you can basically do a simple rectangle, place it like this. There we go. Now you're going to have a few options here. So this is basically setting up the major direction. So if you uncheck this, it's going to the other side. If you check it, it's going to the other side. Same thing here. So if you check this, it's going to go like that. If you check this, now it's going to be all inside of these. So that's basically how Revit is going to calculate from which side it starts counting. And if you check everything, it's going to try to fit everything perfectly within this rectangle. So once we have that in place, let's set it up, and now let's go into 3D. So that's this one here, and this is what that looks like. So it has multiple areas here that are kind of overlapping a little bit, but there you go. So you can set them up individually. You can go into edit type options, make some changes, especially here as far as the major and minor patterns, and especially the overhaul width and the overhaul length. So you can change those to fit whatever maybe your manufacturer is supplying or something like that. Okay, let's cancel out of this one, and let's add one more to explain the fabric sheet. So for that one, I'm just going to go here to level 1 and add one more floor. So just a simple floor, but I'm going to add one more thing here. So once I place this floor and hit finish, let's go into 3D. And I'm going to open up the drop menu for floor and add a floor slab edge. Now here I'm just going to check this, and as you can see we have this slab edge over here. Now once I have this in place, I can go here into level 1 and add a section that goes through all of this. Okay, so once we have that, let's go here to fabric sheet, and I'm going to go with bend sketch. Now for that, let's go into 3D. Okay, here this element is maybe in the way, so we can perhaps hide it in this view. There we go. And let's go here to find level of detail, and this level sign, let's move that out of the way. Okay, everything looks correct now. Now let's go here to fabric sheet, tag, and then first select where you want to place it. And now as you can see, we can actually bend this profile of this sheet. So if you want to place it here, it can go from this side all the way here, then it can go down below, and then it can bend like this perhaps. So perhaps if you want to add reinforcement that follows this line, you can do it this way. Just make sure you stay within the cover boundary. So just make sure you're inside, and there we go. Looks like this. You can choose different sheets here, the different fabric sheets, but when you hit finish and when you go into 3D, okay, this is what this looks like. Okay, it's currently looks a bit weird, but let's see. Let's try to set it up correctly. So yeah, I guess this was a bit too long. So let's go back into our section and let's pull this in a bit, just because this sheet, I guess it's not that long. And there we go. Now it looks a bit more correct. Again, it's having some issues fitting in this here slab edge. Maybe if we make it a bit larger, perhaps it will be easier to adjust it to this. So let's go back into edit sketch. Perhaps it will work like this. Okay, so again, I guess there is not enough material. So if we pull this in, yeah, let's try again into edit sketch. Maybe pull this in here. There we go. Now it's fitting. So I guess we would just have to select this thing and then adjust it here in the edit type and make it just a bit longer or a bit wider to fit this whole thing. Okay, let's exit out of that. And of course we have to adjust it here properly. Maybe go into level 1 and then perhaps just move it here in place. There we go. So that's how you do this fabric sheet. And finally, to complete the reinforcement tools, let's go with the rebar coupler. So I'm just going to go into 3D, find this column that I have created here, and let's extend these here. So when you select one of these rebar, here you have this slider tool. So let's just slide it a bit outside of this column, and then if you go here to rebar coupler, you can choose, maybe let's go with the let's go with the standard one, and here we can place it at bar end. Okay, this one doesn't work with that one. Okay, hopefully this one will work. Okay, this one can't work as well. Okay, maybe the head. Okay, the problem was this is at 16 millimeters, so we have to choose the rebar coupler that's 16 millimeters. So let's go with the headed coupler, 16 millimeter. And there we go, now it works. So basically that's the point, you just have to match the thickness of your reinforcement. But there we go, that's how it looks like, and then you can add the same thing here. There we go. So that's how these rebar couplers work. So there we go. Those are all of the reinforcement tools explained. Now all of the model tools, the opening tools, the datum tools, and the work panel tools, work plane tools, I have already explained in the architectural tab tutorial. And here, as you can see, the architectural tab contains all of these as well. So these are the ones that get repeated. So I don't think it's necessary to go into this. I'll leave the link to the architecture tools tutorial in the description of this video, and there you can find all of these tools if that's what you're interested in. Okay, so that covers the part 2 of this tutorial, where I show you how to use all of these tools on the structure tab. I hope I have gotten you interested in all of the structural tools, and then if you want to explore them further, I suggest you check out the tutorials that I'm going to be leaving in the description of this video. And if you want more advanced courses where I go in depth to some advanced topics in Revit, I suggest you check out my Patreon, first link in the description. I have over 35 hours of content there. These are all advanced courses, and they basically take you from a Revit novice to a Revit expert. Okay, so, and also you will get all of these project files that I create in Revit. Okay, so that covers this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe for more useful tutorials, like and share this video, it helps me out really a lot. And I'll see you in a couple of days with another Balkan Architect tutorial. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.